Hello and welcome to Future Focus, a financial strategies podcast where we make the complex simple. My name is Troy Branch, and I'm joined here by my intrepid advanced planning colleagues, Keali French.
Hello.
And Jacob Messick.
Troy, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's 2026.
Yeah, second season.
Like maybe the budget went up a little bit. Well, we'll see how the year progresses.
We got some ideas for season 3.
Right. So let's talk about season 2, if you will, 2026. For those of you who may not be aware, this is our jargon jar. And our jargon jar is in place for anytime we throw out acronyms like IRS code sections, things that tend to make things more complex and that we take for granted that everyone understands. That's part of our goal, is to make the complex simple. So we hold ourselves accountable, and every time we determine, and we hold each other accountable, every time we determine that that's jargon, we throw a pebble in the jar, and we're going to keep track of our of our colors. I have blue, Jacob has red, Keali Joe has a little pink, and then we'll see how far we get.
And just
looks
to
a
be
little
clear,
more peaches to me.
Okay.
Peaches.
It is peach color.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, between the three of us, Troy does put in the most pebbles in the jar, right, Jacob?
Hold on a second.
I don't
Don't
know
betray me.
I don't know if we counted up last year's pebbles yet. I think that might.
I don't know. I saw a lot of blue.
After that shot, well, I didn't use my blue all the time, so we had guests, and so I didn't always put it.
I saw a lot of blue.
Anyway, so we're definitely counting them up this year. Since we're shots fired, I'm catching strays over here.
No, that was direct. It was targeted.
Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to what we're going to accomplish today. The title of today's episode is 2026 is here. What do I do now? And this is the personal finance edition, because we're gonna eventually get to estate planning in terms of 2026 is here. What do I do? But for today's topic, we're going to talk about personal finance. Let's dig in. So we want to look forward, and this is this is the time of year where we're going to be looking forward. But before we look forward, we need to understand sort of where we've been, right? And so just want you to think about it in terms of, yes, we're going to look forward, but what should people be thinking about? Where they've been sort of financially when we think about it from a personal finance level. What should people be thinking about?
I mean, how do you know where you're going if you don't know where you are? Past performance is so important for us to actually kind of go back and review in the year, just to make sure that we understand exactly what our financial situation is, where we're sitting at, and what we want to achieve for the next year.
No, I think I agree. I mean, without looking back, you kind of don't know what your goals are for the next year, and it's easy to repeat mistakes or miss out on opportunities. And yes, Troy, I saw you looking at me. Microphone is pushed back a little ways. That way there's a little bit room for the hands for those who have maybe watched a recent episode and know what that Easter egg is being referencing. Yeah. I got a little bit more room here with my hands for this one. I have less
room, so I'm like, I noticed that I talk with my hands a lot, so I'm actually going to do my best to keep them under the table.
But no, I think looking back, it helps you know where did your money go, help identify patterns, and help look to make informed decisions for the future. It helps create that awareness. It's not only doing a budget, but maybe taking it one step further and doing a cash flow analysis and kind of knowing.
No.
Which is
I'm not gonna necessarily make you put it one in.
I will pay.
No, because I was right on the cusp of explaining.
You were not about ready to explain cash flow. You were
Yeah.
not ready to.
All right, I guess and here I was gonna play nice with you guys today, but I'll put the first one in for the year. No, cash flow analysis. Really, what that is taking a look at what's coming in, what's going out. So not just doing a budget and saying, hey, I'm going to allocate this amount of dollars to this expense, to this endeavor, this purchase. It's really tracking dollars in, dollars out to see the flow of everything.
Yeah, I like when I think about budget, like budget is what you aspire to. Cash flow is what you actually did.
Yep.
And then balance sheet is the report card. Like if you did what you actually said, if you did budget or cash flow, if you did what you actually said you were going to do, it's going to be reflected in the balance sheet positively, right? Assuming you didn't plan a negative budget, right?
Well, and then that way you can help see, hey, was there any overspending, or did you have impulse buys that weren't on the regular monthly expenses? And you can align those spending with your goals. And, it's easy. It's just things like, taking a look at what kind of ongoing subscriptions you have and services you have and cancel any unused one. I know I look at my household, we have a lot of different subscriptions and services on a regular monthly basis. And beginning of the year is the perfect time to have that be part of that personal finance approach of reviewing just, what have you done this last year?
How many subscriptions do you have?
I don't want to talk about it. A lot.
No, seriously. So you have a lot. So I say that not being accusatory because, I'm staring at Peacock. Actually, I did cut the mouse cord this past December, right? So I'm a YouTube TV. Still have Peacock, still have Prime, still,
Netflix.
No, I don't have that one. That's the I broke up with the mouse.
Yeah.
Well, moral of the story is I don't know about you guys, but I've forgotten about subscriptions before. So making sure that you go in at the end of the year and actually look and see, okay, where are my reoccurring payments happening, might actually show you, oh, I'm spending money on this subscription that I haven't used in months.
Is this a good time to say that this is not providing subscription advice, that each and everyone's personal subscription services are different and what might fit for you will be different for me?
And if you like the mouse, you can stay with the mouse.
There's just no, it's just general subscription knowledge.
No, we, yes, it's actually a really opportune time that the aspects and concepts and things that we talk about on Future Focus are purely educational. We're not making any specific recommendations, but it is an opportunity for us to talk about some of the things that these are the real conversations that this time of year seems to generate. Whether it's subscriptions, whether it's the one with subscriptions that I always like having a subscription, and I listened to a podcast about this, having a subscription to be able to track all of my subscriptions. That to me is just weird, bizarro land, but it's necessary because it's one of those things that, like, subscriptions are a big thing. Those are the models that eat into budget and cash flow that we don't feel. Like, maybe you don't feel individually as much, but collectively it ends up being
sneaks up on
well,
you.
Everything, a lot of things are on a monthly basis, whether it's, it's car wash, it's, warehouse store locations to buy things in bulk. And so it's, as you're doing that cash flow, it's just, that's part of tracking what's coming in, what's coming out. And what's nice is there's a lot of great tools for this. There's a lot of great apps that let you take a look at budgets, take a look at cash flow, and there's a lot of free ones and a lot of ones like this for costs. And it really is finding that right one that fits what meets what you're trying to accomplish with it for, as you look into the new year.
There was a time where, like, I was cleaning up around the house and you could, I could go back to the old, old Excel spreadsheets that it wasn't like anything, because I'm not an Excel. I'm serious, like add average. That's all I got. But I would go back and I could look back at what I set as a budget and what I set at, what actually happened, cash flow, and it was all things that I did on Excel. Now you can go on things like Excel, to your point, and they have different types of cash flow, cash flow statements or calculators, and certainly budgets. And as it gets more complicated, it ties it all together. But I oftentimes wonder if people don't take that step, one, because they don't want to see where they actually spend stuff, but two, it's kind of complicated.
Or they just don't know how to get started. And, believe it or not, I still do use mine on an Excel spreadsheet. I know there's a lot of great tools and apps out there for it. I just had mine built. I built mine on a spreadsheet, and that's what I utilize. I think the main reason for that is, and we talked about the overspending, but why we're having this conversation is, if you're underspending and now you have a surplus and you can reallocate that surplus towards goals that we're going to talk about, and whether it be retirement planning or other future midterm, long-term goals. And I think that may take us into the next topic.
You can reallocate it.
Reallocate. That's a big
No,
word.
I use reallocate. I used that this morning with my 4-year-old.
I don't know. What is reallocation?
I'm gonna reallocate some of your fruit snacks into my lunch bag
And she
for
probably
lunch
said,
today.
"What are you talking about, Father?"
Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so I'm sorry, reallocating fruit snacks.
Man,
That's hilarious.
everyone must have had a really good New Year. If everyone's coming full of energy and
All right. So now that you've reflected, you've revisited your goals, you've said, okay, I'm going to do the budget, I'm going to do the cash flow, the balance sheet is my report card, and that's reflected in either a higher net worth or a lower net worth, right? So now that you've done that, how should people then approach kind of what you were just talking about, Jacob? Like I've put it down on paper, I've evaluated it. Either I have, let's say I have a surplus. How should people begin to make that evaluation of what do I do now? Now that I know, what do I do?
yeah. Do you want me to go for it? I guess
Yeah,
to
go
me,
for
it's kind of three things that my wife and I were actually having this type of conversation real recently. And really it's, I guess the first step is almost reviewing last year and said, hey, what were our goals for last year? And did we achieve them? Did we get close but not achieve them? And then, it's taking that and then defining what are our priorities for this next year, short term, midterm, long term. We'll talk about all those in a second, what all those mean. But then I think it's not only defining the goals, but then it's breaking them down into actionable items that you can pinpoint success points to.
So I don't mean to push back, but I got to push just a little bit.
Okay.
So what do you say about the argument that people only plan their lives about 2 weeks at a time? Like those unexpected expenses. For example, I'm going on a cruise next year, and this was sprung on me a month ago, which is a big expense. My parents were like, "We're going, and you're coming." It's a big expense. I know. Shut up. But it's an expense I didn't budget for, that I wasn't aware of. And like there are things that come up. Maybe my friend wants to go to Italy next year. They just haven't told me yet. These are big expenses that I don't think about yet, that I haven't budgeted for. So what do you do about that person who doesn't think more than like 2 weeks ahead of time? Is it just have that surplus set aside for that fun stuff? Because we don't want to use the emergency funds.
Yeah, because I think the emergency fund dollars, which is 3 to 6 months of base of the living expenses, that's separate. And so I think it's maybe having that bucket built up and start for those short term goals, so which are less than a year, or those midterm goals, those 1 to 5, having something. It may not have something pointed to them yet, but kind of building something in mind that say, hey, if something like this comes up, I can go in and I'm saving towards those dollars. And that's where I think having kind of those actionable items, those checkpoints, saying, okay, if I know I have a vacation coming up in the summer in 6 months, maybe I want to have half of it saved up by this point in time, or have the full amount saved up by this date. And so I think it's having those defined points in times and those defined goals that help you meet them.
That are actually manageable and
Yeah,
actionable.
and I think manageable. I mean, because if it's an unrealistic goal, I think it's setting realistic expectations and goals of what you're trying to accomplish.
And so to that point but to your point, I just got sprung on me. So what do I do? What if I'm not able to save? So it's probably a little more forward thinking. 3 to 6 months of expenses. We know that emergency account, you get there. But then you're probably also, at least for me, I know the way that I have to be is I have to go, I don't know what is going to be short term, but I know I need to be saving for something short term.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, I'm not committing at all to it. Right. But I need to be saving something for short term, because there's going to be a trip. There'll be something that comes up that I would like to not have to take from in your words, that 2 week cash flow.
Yeah.
So you're building these buckets. At least the way I think about it is you're building these buckets: emergency 3 to 6, short term,
0 to 12 months.
Yeah.
So this kind of all goes into just building that cushion of making sure that you have that financial freedom to go out and go on that trip if it comes up in like a sprung way. That's just a way that's just not planned. Having that cushion and that ability to have that financial freedom to make those choices and go on those special
to
things.
go on the vacation, to holiday expenses, or I thinking back to this spring or summer, and in a matter of weeks, my garage door spring broke. I needed new tires on the car, and both the boys all of a sudden needed new shoes for school.
And then you wrote a country song?
Yeah. And so it's, all those things come up, and if you are able to build that into your planning, and you don't have to deplete the emergency fund, you don't have to try to find those dollars elsewhere. So like you said, it's having some short-term goals in mind and building that into your plan.
And that planning allows for you, it allows for you to not deprive yourself. Because one of the things that I think we run into when we have these conversations about, if you go back and, I'm always talking about living below your means and saving 10%, like all those conversations in and around sort of personal finance, that sometimes can come off as deprive yourself. This way, budget, cash flow, goals, doing things allows you to sort of enjoy this part of the journey.
Yeah, enjoy each stage of your life and your career, and that's why having those conversations of knowing, hey, what do I want to do in the short term, midterm, that 1 to 5 years, long term, 5 years and above. That way, I don't have to stop saving for retirement so I can do this in the short term. It's not a either or, it's an and situation, but it's just building that, and then it's just taking those steps to try to accomplish what you want those goals to be in those 3 different stages.
I love that.
All right. So
all I heard was Keali Joe's going on a cruise.
And
Alaska.
And
It's going to be beautiful.
Italy.
I'm not going to Italy. Alaska.
Man, you're buying lunch next time.
No, I'm broke. That's the whole point of this conversation.
The whole point of the conversation is I'm broke. Okay, so now we're and I've mentioned it a couple of times. We look back. We've now looked forward prospectively with the cash flow statement, with the budget. Now let's think about the report card, the balance sheet. Like, what's the benefit of looking at sort of a consolidated view of what you've done?
So, just for those who aren't familiar with the balance sheet.
I probably got to get that one in. Yeah.
A balance sheet essentially comes down to one formula. And the formula is assets equals liabilities.
Assets equal liabilities?
Plus stockholders' equity.
That's the Masters of Public Accountancy.
That's a little bit.
You can flip it around. You can say assets minus liabilities equal equity.
That's a little bit more.
That's a little bit. That's
a little bit more the complex
symbol. How I think
symbol.
about it is assets equals liabilities plus equity.
No.
But if you want to think about it in the normal person term,
think of
which
it
you
as
should,
equity first.
Assets minus your liabilities is your equity. Equity is what you have left over. It's
what you own versus what you owe. And then the net difference is your
net worth.
Is what you have.
You got to give me one on that.
Net worth?
No, on that definition.
You take a vote.
Okay, no, because this is a rigged bet. Fine, all 3 of us are in.
All right, so.
But no, I think what Keali Joe was starting to get at was kind of why review your net worth. I mean, we've talked about the cash flow statement that gives you what's coming in, what's going out. Net worth is really that snapshot of where you're at. What are your assets? What are your liabilities? And is your net worth growing or is it decreasing? Mm-hmm. Are you saving more? Are your investments growing? Are you taking on more and more
Go ahead.
liabilities and expenses that's decreasing your net worth?
I have a great story. So I told you, like, I would do this. I actually still do it. But you do your budget and you do your budget. You map it all out. This is what we're doing. We're gonna not do this. We're gonna cancel that. We're gonna do something cheaper. You do all that stuff, and then you sort of measure it with the cash flow statement. And the reason why I call the balance sheet the report card is because you talked about actually saving more, right? Like that's the thing that people sort of resonate with when we think about the balance sheet and it being a report card. If I save more, that means I have more money, but it also allows you to see the benefit of eliminating liabilities or reducing liabilities, paying off the credit card, paying
car loan,
paying
paying
stuff
down
down,
your
car
mortgage,
loan, all that other stuff. So all those decisions that that you make via the budget and the cash flow statement are reflected in the balance sheet. That's why I call it a report card. And I remember the day. Like literally, I remember the day around this time, January. You're doing all this stuff, and I remember the day. Some of our younger viewers out there will you may not think it's never going to come, but I remember the day.
You're thinking 2 words. You're probably thinking student loans.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. But I remember the day when I was like, you did it all, and you added it all up, and he was like, I'm worth zero.
That is a very good
zero.
thing to be worth zero.
I'm worth zero. Like I remember the day. Like I remember running down the steps. Like we are worth nothing. Like that is so awesome.
It's better than being worth negative
it's
things.
being worth negative because at least I don't owe anybody something.
Yeah, and then at that point, then you say, hey, now am I building wealth? Or am I accumulating debt?
Exactly.
And it's able to look at year over year and see those trends because it's the whole because then it's the whole working towards those goals that you're trying to meet.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Anything?
No, I think we're good.
So anything else with the balance sheet?
No, balance sheet, net worth. I think we kind of covered everything. A lot of times it makes sense to, review that at least once a year, kind of get that snapshot picture of where you're at. And if you need to make any changes, start, work towards saving more or paying down debt. So it's just, it's a good part of your review process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And whenever I talk to anyone, my kids, they'll go, I know, Dad, I know, balance sheets, report card, eyes roll back in their head kind of thing. But those 3 things, I feel like a mastery of those 3 things is the absolute foundation to anything you want to do personal finance.
Well, if you want to be in control of your situation and have more flexibility and less stress, having control over those, knowing those 3 things makes a lot of sense.
I think that's the way to get control over your finances for sure. But for anybody who needs to hear this, it's okay if you don't have all of these things. Just make sure you get a step in the right direction. Make sure you're doing something, putting something away, paying off some debt, doing what you can. It's okay if you don't have it all figured out right now.
Okay.
In my opinion.
She's the young one.
I am.
She's the young one of the group.
Do we have time for a quick exit ramp detour? No, we
I'm getting the wrap up sign.
No, this quick 2 minutes.
You got 2 minutes on the clock.
2 minutes. This really should have been.
This isn't me. I'm just saying you
really
heard me say wrap it up.
This
right?
really should have been
This
start of
is
the
not
episode.
me.
Happy, when I said Happy New Year, I was also thinking beginning of the new year. Do you guys go out and party for the new year? Or are you a stay at home and celebrate the new year at home? I feel like season 2 listeners want to continue to learn more about us and who we are. So New Year's Eve, do you go out? Do you stay in?
I am typically a stay in. I used to of course when I was younger I was go out, tear it up. Then with kids, we all I had a group of friends all had kids the same age. I was cook a big meal, cook a prime rib and have everyone over. Kids are all in one spot. And now I'm the last 2 years I will have spent New Year's in Times Square, and I'm going to be by the time this airs will have been in Las Vegas on New Year. So that's definitely out of my recent comfort zone.
I feel like those are conversations for another episode. Hearing a little bit about Times Square and Vegas on New Year's Eve.
That'd be fun. I'm not as exciting. I am a hermit. Me and my fiance are sitting at home playing video games till 12. We say woohoo, and then we keep playing till 3 and go to bed.
All right.
So, all right. So
there we go.
we should probably wrap this up.
We're back on the interstate.
Back on the interstate. We hit a rest stop. That wasn't like a quick stop. That was a rest stop. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to stop this. We're going to stop this episode right now because we're going to have part 2 of our of our 2026 is here personal finance edition. Okay, so be on the lookout. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're starting here, and be sure to tune in for part 2 of this conversation as we continue with personal finance. I'm Troy Branch. Thanks everyone. See you soon.